Hey everybody, welcome to the 34th Overdose and Chill from almost locked down again Melbourne. We're enjoying our last hours of freedom here until midnight. Joining me today is Suzie Young, Head of Digital and Direct Marketing at Signet. Hey Suzie.
Hey Laura, how are you?
Yeah, look, not too bad. Weekend plans in disarray as we go into another 5-day lockdown. I'm enjoyably in the office today. We all just had dumplings to celebrate Chinese New Year. There's about 10 of us here, but so I'm glad I decided to get out of the house and be around people because we're back into hopefully, what's a short-term lockdown. And a few of the guys are downstairs scrambling, changing trading hours and ads for our bricks and mortar stores. But thank you so much for joining us today. And for those of you that don't know where Suzie's from, Suzie heads up a company called Signet in the digital department. They're one of the top 100 privately owned Queensland businesses. They do have sat with the Melbourne Overdose team for I think just over 2 years now, maybe. Yep, about there. So I wanted to just mainly get you to introduce yourself, tell us your story, how you started your career, what led you to Signet.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me, first of all. As Laura said, I head up the digital and direct marketing team for Signet, and I've been in that role for 2.5 years now. And I'd say this role has definitely been the highlight of my career, both from a people and culture perspective, but also the work and the content and the digital and the tech that we get to work with. And before that, I was actually with our sister company Insignia, and I was with Insignia for a very long time, probably longer than I like to talk about sometimes. I'm one of those rare species of people that's kind of been with the same group for my whole corporate career anyway. And when I started with Insignia, I started more in sales, actually. I studied marketing at uni, but went into sales and loved sales, working in a B2B company. And you'd know this, Laura, like kind of the best part of working with other businesses is, learning about their business. And at Insignia and Signet, we supply all the biggest retail and FMCG manufacturers and some really cool brands. And so I really always loved that about sales. I also got involved in a lot of the traditional B2B marketing, so back then it was a lot of sales enablement, events and trade shows, lead gen and warm-up campaigns for sales reps and all that kind of stuff. I think when I joined the business, it was quite small, and the Winson Group that covers Signet and Insignia, I've seen double in size twice since I've been there. With that, I guess, brings a lot of opportunities, and I've had a lot of different roles over that time, and I've been based in the Melbourne office a couple of times as well. But, on reflection, I think one of the, pivoting points in my career was actually when I was coming back from mat leave the first time. I have two little ones. I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. And when I was coming back from mat leave and kind of looking to just re-enter the business a couple of days a week, my GM at the time said to me, hey, do you want to lead a project looking at a CRM? Because at the time we didn't have a CRM platform across both Insignia and Signet. And I said, yeah, sure, that sounds fab. And then ended up being the functional lead across the group and working with the IT team really closely on selecting and implementing the Microsoft Dynamics 365 platform. And that was really cool because that gave me the opportunity to kind of build on my skills in sales and marketing that I had and implement that across, the sales teams in traditional lead and opportunity pipeline stuff. We looked at marketing automation at the same time. We implemented it across the call centers across the group. And I also got a cool opportunity at one stage to work closely with the field service and technical service department of Insignia, which was a bit of a digital transformation project. Kind of went from having field service technicians that used dockets and very manual triple, quadruple keying processes to re-platforming them on the 365 platform and, field service techs with mobile apps and everything automated. So that was really cool. And at the same time, in the marketing side, which I was always kind of involved with, digital and website was quickly becoming the #1 lead source for our leads, getting really involved in SEO and paid search and loving that. And so probably quite late in my career, in my late 30s, I realized what I wanted to do when I grow up and knew that I wanted to move more into kind of a digital role. And a bit of divine timing at the time when I was kind of thinking, okay, I need to, look at what's next. The MD of the group approached me about a great opportunity to join Signet in this role and work with a really great group of people. Our GM of Signet is Matt Henry, who is really well known and regarded as a great digital guy in the Australian industry, and just a great guy as well. But also an awesome management team of people who are quite specialised in their field. So I was like, okay, I'll jump brands and go work for Signet.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting when you talk about that, when you first sort of sunk your teeth into the CRM stuff and knowing your IT team as well as I do, and having embarked on the project we've got, I think you're one of those really unique businesses where the relationship you have with your IT team is actually really productive, underpinned by mutual respect. And I think when you're going through significant tech stack selection, platform migrations, changes in that, working the way I see your marketing team and your IT team work is something really interesting. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because we often cringe, like even I go through procurement, I go through pitches with marketing teams all the time, and they're like, oh, we just need to get this past IT and that's going to be the shit. Can you tell me a little bit about what it's like at Signet and what the culture is there?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Laura. And I think for me personally, what was really great about moving into the Signet brand is the way our group is structured. Is we have the Winston group, which has all the supporting functions. So IT was the same, and people and culture is the same across the both brands, but different trading businesses. And so when I'd worked on that Dynamics project, I'd worked with Alan, who's our GM of IT, and his team. And so when I came over to the Signet role, one of my remits was we need to look at a replatforming of the current site, because we were on we'd been on a custom build site for 12 years, as you know, and we really needed to get kind of onto a best practice platform and get some more security and stability. And so what was great about me coming into the role is I already had the relationships there, which was good. But I'll say IT, we kind of joke internally, like we're not a massive company, we're not a corporate, we're not small either. We kind of say, I guess we'd say we're mid-size. We kind of joke, we're a cool MarTech dream team because there's a really great collaboration between the IT team and the marketing team working very closely together. And I guess that was then very beneficial for the Magento project because we already had those established relationships.
Yeah. And so let's talk about the projects, and we're not here to talk about Overdose, the work we do, but you and I had a bit of a laugh last night about, the duration of the project, how we got to come to that point. And I'm really keen to, get your transparent feedback on what were probably the best parts of the project, and then what were the parts that were frustrated or provided friction. Because, for you guys with the project of your size and duration, you worked really closely with our Kiev office, obviously Auckland, Melbourne, then you guys up in Brisbane. Plus we had pretty significant lockdowns with the pandemic during that time of when we were executing. So maybe tell me about what went great, because, I think one of the things that a lot of clients, when they first talk to us, and getting an understanding of how it works when you do have so many different stakeholders in different locations and critical people at each of those locations that are so pivotal to the delivery, what it was like for you and your team, so we can just be really open about that side of it, because that's what I think helps everyone grow and learn and give other businesses a good knowledge base of how they should approach their projects. Because a project, you can go in, it's all flowers and rainbows and sunshine and everyone has the best intentions, but there's times where it's, it's bloody hard and you get in the weeds and there's things that are unforeseen. So I'm keen to get what your experience was during that time.
Yeah, sure. I guess, we've just, just gone live with the new website in November. We did 2 sites at the same time, didn't we? So we did Insignia in October and November in Signet. And I guess that was the end of what was probably a 2-year project in the end, from, say, going to RFP, selection, scoping, and then through to the end. There's definitely highs and lows along that process. I mean, I've reflected on it a lot, and I think you've obviously got to have confidence in technical capability with the team that you're working with and the partner that you select. But I think one of the most important factors with us in selection as well is culture and cultural fit. And I know that, you and I talk about this a lot and have talked about this a lot, but that was like a really important part of this from the very beginning. And I remember when we went, when we first, met the team and spent time with the team. And then even before we made selection, we made sure to spend a couple of days with yourself and with all the key people that we would be working with to make sure, because it's a big commitment, isn't it? Like, you're signing on for a couple of years of your life and you're going to spend a lot of money, and you want to make sure that the team, the partner that you've chosen can not only do the work technically, but that you kind of like them and that you want to spend all that time with them, because there's a lot of time there where we're on, whip calls with different people daily. So
you almost go through a stage, particularly in that delivery stage, and it's probably a good 3, 4, even more months where you actually, our clients speak to our team every single day, same time every day.
Yes.
We all jump on, and it is monotonous, and it's almost like being in a relationship, right? You want to start out going, I feel pretty strongly about these people or this person because we're going to be spending a lot of time together and there's going to be challenges thrown at us. And I think the cultural alignment is really important. And I think, we get the privilege of working with a lot of businesses, but the Signet culture is one I've always admired. And I know you guys have that, the grad program, and I spoke at that, I think it was during lockdown, wasn't it? But to you grads, can you tell me a little bit about how Signet and Insignia cultivates their young talent for future departments and specifically digital? Because there's a lot of talk at the moment. I'm seeing a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. You see these job ads where it's like, $25 an hour, flexible hours, need 10 years experience, be willing to do this and this and this. And it's such it's bullshit, to be fair. And I think you and I are both really passionate about bringing young people in and giving them that start in their career and then taking them into different business departments. So can you tell us a little bit about how you guys run that grad program?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we've had a grad program in the group for about 20 years now, and it's a really fantastic program. It's led out mostly by, a head of CX in collaboration with our people and culture team. And it's quite a structured program. So it's a 2-year program. We basically bring graduates in and we start them in our call center, which is a great place to start. Because we're a B2B business, we still have quite a large phone and email channel. And what happens is when they start there is they get that real foundation across the whole business. They get to know and learn our customers, our product, the culture, how things work, our ERP system, our CRM system, and then they tend to branch out from there. And they, though I'd say probably in the past, the majority of our graduates are sales and marketing graduates, these days is really like a 50-50 mix with supply chain graduates and HR and all sorts of different, we've even got a technical graduate across the group. So we'll run anywhere from 20 to 25 grads across the group. And then what happens, is we're seeing all these really high potential young people. And what happens is a lot of them then move on to different roles. And so in my team right now, I, have probably half of the team has actually come through the graduate program. We've also done a lot of, had a lot of, grad interns in the past that have turned into permanent roles. So the group has always been really passionate about that. And there's lots of young people who've started the business and who are in senior leadership positions today as well.
Yeah. We're quite similar. We don't have the formal structure that you guys have, and I think it's something that'll inevitably get onto our radar of getting some structure around it without going against the whole Overdose way, which is very anti-structuralist in a lot of ways. But I've had 2 grads that we brought in as grad interns last year that have turned into full-time positions. And you work with Daniel, the SEO team. He comes straight out of uni.
Absolutely adore.
Yes. Yeah, he's brilliant, and he's obviously now our head of SEO in Melbourne. So, yeah, it's great to see that you guys are doing that.
And what's happened is we've created that structure not only around the content and the learning and in the job, but we've also introduced these conferences. And before COVID, it used to be, go away for a weekend somewhere, and there'd be a different topic for these conferences, and they might do 2 a year. And one might be on sales and marketing, one might be on supply chain. Get them some good guest speakers, get them involved in a project where they need to present back. But then when COVID hit, obviously we couldn't do that. And that's when we invited you, Laura, to come along and speak. So the head of CX launched a virtual webinar series for the graduates as a way to keep stimulating them and get them external speakers and talk about different growth topics for their career. So, yeah, it's been a really great program.
And I mean, that stuff, obviously there's been so much of that stuff over the last 12 months because the whole world has essentially had to shift to, we've done a podcast together.
Yes.
Like this is our first live stream conversation.
Yes.
Like we did do a podcast together last year. And I think, what we're really cognizant of now at Overdose is making sure that we're keeping the content fresh and the way we're communicating with the market and our clients, because now there's such a influx and saturation of that kind of stuff in there. And, my team with online learning and, a lot of my crew are in Google programs or Facebook programs that historically were in person. It's shifted to this online structure, and it's not the same, and there is a little bit of fatigue with it, but I still think it's critical because, as we can see, the commitment to travel and doing face-to-face things, we're still a fair way off being able to properly
most definitely
obviously properly do that. So I think it's going to be a really interesting journey to see in 2021 the innovation around how people are going to change and do it so that the structure remains engaging, because all we had to do was go, well, how do we do it to go from in-person to online? Yeah, that's fine. But now we've been doing it online for a year. How do we keep it fresh and how do we keep people engaged? And the culture side of that and the personal development, all of our team have like an annual budget that they can spend on themselves for their personal development, provided it's in line with their learning. And, most of them haven't spent their annual budget for the last year. And I'll be really interested to see how we're going to try and continue that and get them enjoying some of that without being able to travel, because I do believe this year will be another year of fairly limited or non-existent travel. So, yeah, I think getting that balance right is something that I'm really concentrating on, and the cultural element, particularly with Victorians and Melburnians, we legitimately have had 9 to 10 months where we weren't able to come into the office. So,
which is really tough, isn't it, for culture? Yeah.
Well, it is. We actually had drinks 2 weeks ago, and half the team or 3/4 of the team come in, and then there was 6 or 7 people that we'd hired in the last 4 or 5 months, and they were all like sitting in a little group together, and then like the older team. And so culture's been one thing we've always been proud of, but keeping that connectivity is really tricky. And I know you guys have mainly been at home, say, like the fulfillment, your logistics and your call centre people. Like, how's it worked at your end?
Yeah, so I'm based in Queensland. We have people all over the country, but the marketing team's based in Queensland. And so I guess we were lucky that we didn't have as large of a lockdown as you guys. But I'd say our company took more the cautious approach, and we took a lot longer to start coming back into the office. And I think one of the positives from COVID for us has been a flexibility with a working from home, coming into the office that's here to stay, which is really great, because prior to COVID, I was in the office every day. And as a full-time working mum, that could be really hard to manage. And I'd say, even though there's been challenges, as you know better than anyone, with, working from home and having kids at home as well, There's something really nice about, you know, seeing your kids more, even if you are working, you know, they can come and say hello. So yeah, so it's really cool that flexibility is here to stay. And I guess what we've been trying to get back into the swing of is, you know, a system that works for everyone. So come into the office 2 or 3 days a week and work from home a couple days a week. But yeah, I'm kind of very thinking very much about how do we make sure we get everyone to at least connect once together as a group once a week. And it was really funny because one of my team members, Prue, who heads our digital marketing, she actually started 2 weeks before the lockdown. And so she hadn't met everyone in person for, I think it was 4 months before she actually met everyone in the marketing team in person. But just recently we're in the office and everyone happened to be in the office that day. So instead of doing a digital huddle, we did a good old whiteboard huddle that we used to do. And when we used to do that at the end of a huddle, we'd had this thing where we'd clap at the end as a bit of a sign off, but it's kind of like no one was really in time. So it's a bit all over the place. So everyone just did that as a habit. And she kind of freaked out. She went, "What's everyone doing?" It was like, "Oh, yeah, you weren't here for that." Yeah. So it's definitely
your point on the connectivity is that's the biggest balance, because I'm with you. The extra flexibility for all age groups, you know, I've got people here as young as 21, and then, you know, us, a lot of us, particularly in the senior leadership, we're a bit older, we've got children, and, you know, genuinely, I couldn't agree more. I was out of the house 10 to 12 hours a day, every day. Spending that extra time with the family and having that flexibility has been great. You're still working the same amount, you know, but I really loved that lack of travel, lack of commute, you know, taking, you know, and making breakfast, taking your time with stuff like that. And then, you know, if I needed to work back later in the night to catch up with things, that was great. But my challenge is, I think a big part of why people choose to work with Overdose Melbourne is the people, is the culture, is the feeling that you get when you walk through our doors and spend time in our office. How do you maintain that long term whilst giving people what they want, which is genuine flexibility? Most of my team have felt that last year in a lot of ways served, without being flippant about the global crisis, but served a lot more positive than negative. So yeah, the culture thing is still something that I'm trying to nail. So it's good to hear that you guys are kind of experiencing something similar there. Hey, can we change tact a little bit and maybe talk about, because this is something that I see clients agonize over a lot or get different advice on, and that's tech stack and selection of tech stack and the inevitable questions around scalability, longevity, total cost of ownership, you know, internal team resourcing. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about the journey that you guys have gone on with that over the last 2, probably even to 3 years, right, when you start considering it before you even engage partners?
Yeah. I think it all starts from a really solid internal, like, tech spec, I guess, of you know, what our current state is and what we're actually after. So I think the team actually started that even before I came into the role, where they just did a really thorough functional document of everything that was required from a Signet business and all the different systems it needed to talk to. So therefore, when we went to RFP, the way we ran it, as you know, is we handed out that functional, that technical document, and we had like a scoring system. So we had everyone fill that out, and then we were able to kind of understand which platforms were going to better suit our requirement or not. And I think the other thing that was very useful was a couple of the agencies that we were talking to through that tender, and you guys were one of them, were platform agnostic. And I actually found that so good, because when you're looking across multiple platforms, genuinely making a recommendation about what you guys think is most suited, instead of just trying to push us on, you know, platform A because that's what you support and platform B because that's what you support. So that was actually really worthwhile. So once we had that, and then we're very much working with the partner The other thing that came out in the RFP, which gave me, like, we had about 10 agencies working through that RFP. And I think when it came to marketing automation, tech, ratings and reviews, personalization and on-site search, I'd say like 8 out of 10 of the agencies actually all recommended the same tech stack. So we kind of knew, okay, there's a general consensus of what is right for us. And then from there, I guess then we could start having the meetings with the suppliers themselves and go from there. And I think the other thing that's been really good through our partnership with Overdose has been that, you know, we're fortunate to work with Nikolai from a technical perspective, and he really knows our account very well. So then when we've gone and met with all these third-party tech companies, you guys have actually come along and kind of represented us, and that's been so helpful because you know, there's I'm not a technical expert, and so it's been so helpful to kind of have that support through every single meeting just to make sure we're making the right decision.
Yeah, and I mean, you know me, you're way more technical than I am. In fact, I'm very, very out there alone. I'm one of the least technical digital agency MDs you'll ever meet. But I think the relationships we have with a lot of those partners, albeit agnostic, and we do like to present up options, is probably critical to, you know, the comfort in that decision-making factor when you're going through it from the client side, but also that ongoing relationship and enhancement. I mean, we're still doing work now with some of those third-party providers, right, where it's that, you know, the personalization component, your email automation component is critical, particularly in that B2B space. And I think, you know, the tech stack selection, when you look back 2 years ago, was one of the most pivotal decisions that you had to make, because now the work we're doing together to, you know, amplify that and really shift that B2B digital experience on its head, you couldn't have done it without those tools and the depth of the integration that you're doing. And I suppose I'd love to hear from you, having all your years of experience in B2B. And, you know, last year we saw a lot of B2B digital transformations for a lot of big businesses in the country and further abroad. What do you see, you know, 2021 and beyond as the most critical components for great B2B digital experiences?
Yeah, well, I think at Signet, I think we're really passionate about being on a journey to have the best possible experience for our customers and not think about ourselves as a B2B, but actually just think about ourselves as a B2C and say, you know what, our customers are people. We shouldn't, you know, yes, there are B2B needs and requirements from technical perspective. I mean, we have it all, as you know, we have complexity and, you know, customer groups and customer pricing and all different types of things going on in our My Account for our very large end of town. But at the end of the day, we just want to give our customers the best possible experience, like you would in kind of a consumer world. So I think that's where it comes back to, like, our big focus this year is personalization. We're using the Nosto platform for that, both for the product recommendation, but also for the content personalization. You know, we have a lot of range in our database across lots of different industry types, you know, from retailers and manufacturers and distributors right through to construction and health and, you know, industrial manufacturing. And similarly, we have customers that are very small. You might have an online retailer that's running a business from their home right up to the major supermarkets. And so that to us is a bit of a game changer in terms of trying to create the best experience by personalizing for them their content, the product placement, the sort order of the menu and all that kind of stuff. So and then I guess we've got some big goals kind of in the top end of town, like the traditional B2B side of our offering, because we do, you know, it is 80-20, like a lot of our revenue sits up in that top end of town. And, you know, we want to innovate the B2B offering around, you know, approval processes and punch out catalogs and, you know, being able to quote particular custom items and have good workflow around that and other things that are coming up and being driven from those customers.
Yeah. We just had a question in actually, Suzie, is, from Ben. Thanks, Ben. But how's your tech stack performing, and are there any changes you have planned that you can share, or would you have made any different decisions? I'd actually be keen to know that. I mean, how the store's performing, we can see certain things. There's certainly been some frustrations on integration level. I would be lying if we said we didn't have some few friction areas on that just to get it running.
Yeah,
how we want it. But I'd be keen to hear what you think.
Yeah, I think like for us, and in B2B, when you are using more of a consumer tech, there is just lots of customization that has to happen to get that right. So, we still haven't, the email platform that we've chosen, we're still not fully integrated there, but we've got plans where we're moving towards that. And probably in hindsight, it would have been good to kind of be working on that one a little bit earlier than we had planned. Yeah, I think it's probably too early to say if there's anything that I would change, because we've literally just gotten on them all, and everything seems to be working. I mean, I think we're definitely happy with the selection of Magento, and could see through the project, how complex some of the requirements were, and that we just wouldn't have been able to do that with some of the SaaS platforms that we kind of thought might be an option. Yeah.
And I think that, like, your point before about how you approach B2B is not to focus on it being B2B and think of them as consumers, which I love that you guys have that attitude towards it. And I've actually taken that into other discussions with B2B clients, of saying, you know what, you guys, you're actually starting at the most complicated point and trying to architect a digital solution that deals with, client X that's spending $500,000 a year on you, and then client B who's at, $50,000 a year, and their pricing tiers. You have that complexity, but I think at the end of the day, they're all consumers. But to your point about platform selection, there's no way we could have given that consumer experience whilst also addressing the complex business structure that you guys have, because you've almost got 3 to 4 ecosystems of client groups within the business, being, your top end of towns right down to your mum and dad, small business owners doing it out of their back garage. There's some pretty significant.
Yeah, and a good example of a complexity and how that plays out across the whole tech stack is just pricing for us, because we deal with companies, there's lots of people at that company, so it always relates back to pricing that is set for the company. And when anyone from that company logs in to our website, we want them to see their negotiated, contracted, maybe it's even a promotional price wherever they are. And so that means when they're using the Algolia on-site search, that's got to come up and that's got to be calling to their price. When we make a product recommendation, it's got to be their price. And so, when we then start doing, integrating those apps together, it's got to be showing their price. So it just adds a little bit of complexity onto everything that we use, because we're using it, I guess, a little bit different. I think another thing, just as I'm saying that out loud, is that a reason for the selection of the tech stack was that a lot of them were all out of the box integrations with each other. So that was an important decision maker as well.
Yeah, and I think in your scenario, and this is what a lot of people, it's, early on in the stage don't quite understand, is that initial ability to just integrate out of the box between, tool X, Y, and Z, particularly in a B2B environment, is really important, because then when we have to move into customization or creating different workflows or whatever it might be to cater to those different customer groups at different pricing levels. And, for those listening, throwing in as well with Signet, the sheer amount of SKU count of products.
And categories.
And categories is really significant, and that's why, there's at every turn there's been challenges, or not so much challenges, but sometimes some of the most fun B2B commerce work you could do, from a UX, SEO, information architecture, keyword research, performance marketing, feed connections, all of those different components with the SKU count, categorization, pricing is, I think, what makes the Signet solution so sophisticated in comparison to what's out there amongst your competitors? Yeah. So let's say we launched the site late last year. It's going pretty well, I believe. We've had Christmas. We've come out of lockdown. We're going to go back into lockdown in some states. Let's finish off with, what are your hopes? What do you see happening in 2021? If we sit down and have a drink together in December, what will be? We're having one beer. We had a pretty good year. Or what's Laura and Suzie? We're going to go out and we're going to have a few more beers than one beer. Because we really killed it. So tell me what that looks like without obviously disclosing numbers and stuff like that. But what does success look like for you and your team by the end of this year?
Yeah, so I guess we do have big growth aspirations, and to a certain extent, we had a very solid, well-performing website before, one that really stood us well over a period of time, but being custom, and every feature enhancement you wanted to look at, costing a bunch of money, and it just not having the stuff that the global leading platforms have. We felt like for a few years there we were kind of standing still. So we there was a lot of things we wanted to do as a team that we just didn't we didn't have the platform, we weren't able to do it. So now that we've re-platformed, we've got heaps of plans, and I think it's even just little things like now that we're on the new platform, we can actually integrate with a better Google shopping feed that we just couldn't because of the platform before, and that's giving us already extra results. It's that Magento handles SEO better than our last platform, and we're already seeing results from that. It's that our mobile site before, whilst responsive from a UX perspective, was pretty awful, and because of that we never did any mobile advertising, and so now we've switched that on. And so I don't say there's one big thing, but there's so many little things that I feel like as a team we've been waiting to jump on this platform, and so we're predicting that we'll have some really significant growth. The other area that I'm probably most excited about is the personalisation and the AI driven cross sell. Again, our old platform wasn't able to integrate with a tool like that, and so we're so excited to be using Nosto and see what kind of results we can get from that, especially because we've got that really large SKU count and lots of different categories and lots of opportunities there. So I think, at the end of a year for Signet, it will be lots and lots of little things that will lead to some growth, and just giving the team a little bit of a break in terms of what was a massive year last year re-platforming, and try not to do anything too major this year, and then probably looking at some bigger projects the year after.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I love that answer. And I think for all commerce businesses, whether they're D2C or B2B, that lack of, it is all just the little things that add up to get you that great result. So I think that's a brilliant answer. And so I don't think there's any more open questions there. Actually, except from Todd. Can you get an air guitar, please?
We're sold out, Todd.
Sold out of air guitars.
You have to ask the Ginger Assassin.
We've got some air guitar Ginger Assassin t-shirts still here. Most of them got taken. Yeah, I've got
we've got merch, yes.
Yeah, we've got plenty of merch. You guys are always generous with your merch. But I just wanted to say thank you for being my first OD Melbourne Chill guest. I always love chatting with you. We get to speak all the time. The team loves working with you and your crew, and I hope you have a really Ben, the platform, it was custom. It was a bespoke built. We just got a question, what platform did you move from? And I just said it was custom. But you still had Microsoft Dynamics in place that new custom site, didn't you? Yeah, yes. That's right. Yeah, cool. But thank you very much for being my first guest. Happy Friday. Enjoy your freedom. I do hope to get up to Queensland very soon. I've got 2 trips to Queensland booked this year, provided there isn't breakouts. But thank you again for your time and sharing everything that you have, and always so transparent and honest. And have a great weekend.
Thanks so much, Laura.
Cheers, Suzie.
Talk soon.
Bye, team.